The Wannabes, episode 12 of season 2. My name is JD.
What's up, JD? Dude, I'm so tired. Oh my god. But it's your boy Wasabi. Dude, at the 4 p.m. wall, as we were just talking about.
Yeah,
Coming in clutch.
it's almost better to record at like 6 a.m. than it is to record at 4 p.m. I totally get it, dude.
Yeah, dude. I was like, we were about to record it. I'm like, fuck, I want a nap right now.
That's all right. Look, I had a pretty good day. I'm full of food. I ate again since we talked.
Nice.
I'm totally digesting, but for some reason, I think it's because I just played with my dog for like literally 3 minutes. So her energy, she's transferred her dog zoomies onto me, and I'm ready to just get into it. There's some Smash news. We actually have a guest coming on, a fellow podcaster and Discord member. Cypher will be joining us in the second half to talk about the Smash World Tour Round 2.
2021.
Yeah, so that's definitely, if you're mostly interested in that, I guess skip to when he comes on. But otherwise, I know that we have been kind of talking about a lot of similar themes that I'm ready to just dive into, specifically about like energy levels and things like that. So without, are you ready to hop into it?
Yeah, no, let's do it.
Yeah. So I think one thing that stuck with me from last week was the idea of waves, like a wave of energy and the consistency of it and the ups and downs versus what we were calling it before. And what drove my kind of inner monologue was the idea of sprints. And I think I carried from our conversation last week to, to a day-to-day rhythm of really trying to think of it differently. Like there's an undercurrent that I have some control over. Even though I can't will myself to have a certain energy level, I can still do the things that make me feel comfortable, that I know are reliable. Like you bring up a lot of times, like give energy back as a priority that should happen. And without getting too into the weeds of how my week went, I think overall, I was pretty proud of, my energy levels and being able to be cognizant of the times where I would either like watch content or slack off or take breaks or, do what in excess would be bad. My main goal was to just be mindful of those things. And then I was able to, practice piano a little bit, like make some music a few days, journal a few days, play mindful melee a few days. And even though, I wouldn't call it like a top-notch week if we're comparing it to pre-COVID times, it definitely felt good to, even though I had like a beer or two every night, stuff like that, I was still aware of where I was. And so I guess I just want to chalk that up to a win, and just say, hey, good job, me, but there's still more work to be done, which is kind of a good feeling.
Yeah, man. Congrats. I mean, that's really awesome. It sounded like you had a really, really productive and like energizing week.
At least comparatively. Yeah. I think there's a trap I often get into where I will kind of get ahead of it and like put stops to it intentionally, where one or two things can happen. Either I can like kind of push myself down and be like, no, this isn't good enough. You're not like, tomorrow let's really grind. Like now you've had a few good days. Tomorrow we're going to kick some ass and you're going to do all this shit. And then that's where honestly it becomes a sprint, and there's no real better word for it because it is chaotic and it is unsustainable. Or the other way around where I'm caught like patting myself on the back and saying, okay, you're done, or you could take a break, or tomorrow doesn't have to be that good. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and even within those two almost extremes, there's, it's every decision day to day. If I sit down at 9 o'clock and I start my work day either in a productive way or an unproductive way, that there's a little decision here or there. And I guess what I'm really trying to pay attention to and not force or not have too strong of goals, but just figure out what leads me to make the initial decisions that kind of start off the slant of the day. Is it going to be an up slant or a down slant? And as long as those things are mindful, then it doesn't take a ton of willpower to course correct in the moment. And then
Mm-hmm.
and then it doesn't become a huge macro battle of like, where's my life headed? What am I doing this week? What's in front of me? Why aren't I? It doesn't become about that. It's just, all right, wait, maybe I could just clean my desk real quick. I don't need to do everything. Just clean my desk, Or you didn't drink enough water this morning. Like, you didn't really drink a lot of water. Just drink a little water. Like tiny,
Mm-hmm.
tiny things. Did you get your water? Is that what you just got off screen?
No.
So I think when the goal becomes so um close to nothing but still something, it's
Mm-hmm.
the goal is still firmly a thing. It's just no one would ever call it a big goal. Um then you could kind of chain them in a cool way where you know you and it the inertia of one kind of carries into the other, and all of a sudden you did five things,
Yeah.
and then maybe you don't carry that fifth thing into the sixth thing into infinity, but then you actually do take a break, like you actually do allow yourself to relax, and then maybe you're in the same kind of zone that you would be on a normal quote unquote bad day, but now you have five things done before like 11 o'clock or whatever, and that allows you to kind of kick yourself back up again and start another chain, even if it's two or three things, or maybe if it's just one thing, and
Mm-hmm.
I guess I've just been trying to spend a lot of time understanding the relationship of my own momentum and my own inertia in the things that logically I know I want to do, but for whatever reason can't get myself to do.
Yeah.
And I actually wanted, I know the timing didn't work out. I wanted to play you today because I'm really curious how that affects my melee. And this is kind of my last
Mm-hmm.
point before I hand it off proper. But, I think one of the reasons I love the game so much, because I did get a chance to play a little later in the week when I felt like I had already, I guess, accomplished things during the week.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to get into a more comfortable headspace. And I mentioned in weeks past getting into the game through anger. Like, that was not my way into the game. And I'm realizing that melee almost is such a mirror into my own mindset rather than the it's like it's like a parallel wave of myself rather than a separate thing. You know what I mean? It's
Mm-hmm.
all linked, and I could see it through the game. If I can't feel it, then I could kind of use that as a like a stud finder. You know, it just
Yeah.
it'll go off, and I'm like, all right, something's wrong. Let me readjust. Or, oh wow, actually, it feels good right now. Like, maybe I'm doing something right, and then I keep doing what I'm doing. Um, I'm wondering if any of that really resonates with you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the first things is that in regards to like motivation and burnout, like have you heard there was a little snippet where Dr. K from Healthy Gamer talks about it. And I think what you described about like just being like, oh yeah, like I just did these one or two things and maybe I won't do the third thing, but that's okay, sort of thing, is like this idea of, I think, moving goalposts. And are you familiar with that term?
Moving goalposts. Yeah, I haven't
Yeah,
heard his
yeah.
snippet on it, so I'm intrigued already.
Yeah, so I mean, essentially the gist of it, and I'll link you the video like once I find it after this talk. But essentially, it's like, if I said like, oh, I want to run like every day starting now for health reasons, weight reasons, or whatever, like that's not possible. Like you got to build up to it and stuff like that. And really, it's about being like being it like, I think we try to move too quickly once we get like our first achievement.
Hmm.
So like say like if I went running, like when I started running over the summer actually, like, I'd be like, okay, like I'll just try to run once a week, and that started feeling good and it felt pretty automatic. And then I think people are like, okay, like I can run like once a week. Let's bump it up to three now, and they immediately try to move it instead of being like, okay, like some weeks, like if we're feeling it, let's run two, and then if we do one still, that's okay also, and we're really keeping the goalpost in line. And the reason why you see a lot of burnout, especially in highly competitive and like academic centers, for example, like say like he was talking in context of med school and stuff like that, is that the goalpost is always being moved, like, it's like, oh, okay, like I'm doing this, okay, let's push a little further, let's push a little further, besides like, rather than kind of like taking a breath, taking a stop, and really realizing like, oh wow, like I'm able to do it like twice a week now, instead of like looking
Hmm.
further ahead. And I think that causes burnout because you are essentially getting the wins and not actually taking time to like recognize it at all, which is really, really interesting.
Hmm.
And it's always in this mentality of starvation, or not enough, where it's like, oh, I'm not doing enough. And it's like, dude, you went from like, you know not running at all to running like 2 times a week. Like that's pretty big. And I think like that is like what he meant by moving goalposts. So I always really like that term because it's about not just like, it's not about like pushing yourself further, but rather keeping things consistent.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I think I can just think back to times where even if you do get it for that first however much time, it's just not really meeting yourself where you're at, to quote a famous Ventus. And I think
Shout outs.
I think when we are on a hot streak, or when we're doing well, or maybe it's an external factor that kicks us into gear, there's a really natural movement into this, I feel great, let's keep this party going. And that's tough to kind of emulate over time, and to do different things. Some people can do it and then they crash, and some people just, you know, I guess it
Fall into
depends.
it.
Yeah, I guess some people,
Yeah.
like, if I'm trying to think of people that find success through it, and it's hard to understand, a long-term thing. Sometimes, like, if you're in a position where you have no choice or something, or there's so much external pressure that you just, like, all right, let's just do it, right? Then
Hmm.
you're able to suppress it long enough that even though you get the job done, or you find that short-term success, I think it's just clear as day that those type of people will eventually burn out, and burn out super hard, and it becomes, just a spiral that's hard to catch, and someone like me, who generally in the course of my life has never been great at organizing my day, or sticking to things for too long, or being super reliable. Like, these are all weaknesses of mine. And what really is fueling this time, um, is it's a proper understanding of like, if I'm going to achieve a job that is both creative and um like self-governing, like basically if I'm going to get my goal of being a professional content creator, then consistency is something I need to train, because if I don't have that, it's impossible. That job does not exist. I'm not a savant artist that can just sit and paint something so amazing that someone will buy it for, $30,000 and set me up for the whole year. That I don't have that. I have creativity. I have, talents and skills, but in this environment, you need to be consistent. That's And I've known this for a while. I guess I just haven't internalized it,
Yeah,
to the degree that's necessary to make a life change. Um,
but I think what is a life change to begin with, right? Like it's more of like not like very rarely are like life changes like oh like snap
Now
like
they're never like that.
everything changes, like
Right.
and I think that's the thing is like life change is gradual still and like from what I'm here it's similar to like if you look like from a scientific standpoint with like people quitting smoking or people quitting like whatever, right? It's like always that they start out with just like resisting sometimes and sometimes they'll fall back in and sometimes they fall back out, but it's a gradual process. And so consistency in my head is the same thing for positive change for anything, whether that's like with any sort of addiction, obsession, or like healthy change like running, exercising, stuff like that, right? Like I
Mm-hmm.
think it's under building it into your day-to-day life, but like that doesn't happen like with a like one decision that you're gonna do it, and I think that like that's what I think separates like as you said like the content creators that are like doing well now is that like they have consistent videos and stuff like that, and like even look at really good players, right? Like they're playing every day. Like I really wish I played every day this week, but I got super busy with work and I got really tired that like this was kind of a little bit of an off week for me, and
Hmm.
and I'm not beating myself up from it, and hopefully I can pick it up next week again. But like that's just sort of what happens because I'm in sometimes a little bit of a different world with my own jobs and responsibilities compared to other people, and I think it doesn't matter because the end metric for me is melee and how good I am versus them, and so if they're better than me, then having time is both a privilege and a blessing and a talent, and I think as I'm getting older, I'm realizing that. But I think that like relating it back to your content stuff and making those changes, it's really how do I put it? It's really about like just picking one thing and running with it, and then you do you learn to do it automatically, and then adding another thing when you think you can do it. But I think like trying to fit everything all in one go is like where the sprints and the burnouts happen because it's just you can't do everything when I go like from a both an emotional sense in this standpoint, but even like with a physical sense. It's just like asking me to like I don't know run as fast as like let's do something ridiculous. Run as fast as Usain Bolt, right? Like
Right.
it's something ridiculous as that, and that's the difference. Is like athletes also like had to take weeks to build up to main season, right? That's why you have a preseason.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good way to put it. And there's two things that reminds me of. One is it might seem a little unrelated, and I think it'll find some footing here, but I've been playing with this thought experiment lately
Mm-hmm.
where it's a way to control impulses, and or at least to try to control impulses, and either if that's from like buying something or having dessert or whatever, is just something I'm like, what, maybe I don't need to do this. What I say is, in my head, if I do this, then I'll be happy. And I say that because it's an absurd statement, right? But it's what the instinct is actually saying. It's what the instinct, or the impulse I should say, is hinting at, is go get that cake, right? And so to put words to it, it's like, okay, impulse, you're telling me what you're telling me, if I eat this cake, then I'm happy. I'm going to be happy. Like, own that statement, because that I don't believe you, right? And so that's just something that I've been playing with, because I think a lot of this is kind of the inverse of the good, which is like, is just preventing the bad, things that suck energy away. Like I've been drinking not a lot of beer, like literally one beer a night is like my habit. People have a glass of wine. I like IPAs. Shout outs to Costco IPAs, by the way. I don't know if you've ever.
No, I heard Cody put a tweet out, actually, IBDW, that Costco IPAs are like High Lies. High Lies are one of my favorite. Shout outs to Cody, IBDW, for putting me on that shit.
Hot tip.
Yeah, High Lies are amazing. They're from Cigar City Brewery down in Florida. But if Costco tastes like High Lies, then yeah, they must be the shit.
Yeah, they're amazing. Yeah, so I got a 24 pack of those. And like, things like that, where if I feel like a stress, or I get in a little argument with Ashley or a family member, or then that's the first thing I reach for, is like another one, right? Another beer. And so I think ultimately, like, it's not that another beer is going to kill me, but and maybe instead of that, like, it's just these little decisions that we're talking about that ultimately make up like the direction we're going. And someone like Usain Bolt made a lot of little decisions in a row, and ultimately became easier and easier for those to be way less negatives than positives. And then the positives just kept going up and up and up, So that's one thing that just reminded me of what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, even think about, relating it back to Melee. Like, think about when we learned how to wave shine, right? You were just happy with one at first, but how many can you do now? Like, you can do it across FD, I'm sure, based on how many times you've played chess.
Sure.
And that's the thing, is like, you don't think about doing 8 wave shines till the end. You're just looking and being like, okay, like, let me just push him to the corner, But like, when we're first starting, 1 or 2 we're taking the wins there, and I think, that's a very simplified version of it, but like,
yeah, you just do one and get an up smash.
It still works. It's still applicable. I think also, like, just like, yeah, like, you'll like, I don't know, like, I messed up this week. I got a little bit drunk on Monday because I pulled a shiny Charizard, because my new hobby is Pokemon cards.
Yes.
And I was popping off because I wanted this card. I wanted this like $300 card. I wanted to pull it myself, and I was so happy that I could stop spending money on it. Let me see where it is. It is right here.
You got it. Yeah, you got that.
Look at that fucking black Charizard.
It's really nice.
High.
And I'm seeing other pictures pop up on Twitter. I'm like, my son's got that ahead of y'all.
Yeah. But I think, like, balancing 2 hobbies has been tough. But before I get into that, I think to close it about like impulses, like, I agree with you. Like, the logic way works. That doesn't work for me. What works for me is just being like, okay, like, let's wait 10 minutes. If I still want something in 10 minutes, like, that's how I lost a bunch of weight over like the pandemic. Is like, I was like, okay, like, if I'm hungry in 10 minutes, I'll eat and I won't feel guilty about it. But sometimes I forget. Sometimes there's some days where it's like, oh, I'm actually full.
Right.
I'm good now. And that was it. That was as simple as it is. I ate when I wanted to eat, but I was like, I gave myself like a 10-minute buffer to be like, to either forget about it or realize that I was full.
Sometimes you need a trick. Like,
you need a trick.
Just something like, and I think something like that. Did you hear that from someone? Is that something you picked up?
Shout outs to, I think, Yipes. IFC Yipes, who is a Street Fighter commentator. I think I heard him say that.
Yeah, I think all these types of things, impulse control or getting yourself to do good things, just if you're like self-betterment, sometimes just a trick like that is whatever you got to do, man.
There's no point in being stubborn for it, honestly.
Right.
There's like zero benefit of being stubborn. What matters is just getting it done in that, right?
Willpower is limited. And speaking of willpower, let's talk about your power, my friend Will.
Where are we going with this?
Well, you brought up hobbies, and this is something that I could talk about multiple hobbies all the
Yeah.
time, and I'm just curious, like, how's the Pokemon going besides the Charizard? Like, show me some lost porn, maybe some. How much have you been
Oh
spending? Shit
no.
like that.
Spending good amount. Good amount. We'll keep the number. I'll message the number later.
Okay.
A, a little bit over like 1,000 since getting into it.
Oh
If
wow.
I,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. Uh, yeah. Lots of scalpers, lots of bots. I've never been more like malding than losing to a bot and getting blocked by the Pokemon Center because I've tried to refresh too many
Oh
times.
my god. I don't even know what
Um,
that means.
yeah, but essentially, like, I don't know, it's weird. I've never really had to balance two hobbies really before. Like, I think I tried to do it while streaming and video editing, but that was still related to Melee. This is kind of like a whole other hobby unrelated to Melee at all. And I haven't had that since I've picked up the game. So it's been really interesting, especially if you know me, like, of course, UJD, where I'm very much like single focused, single minded on things.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there are like some weeks, it's weird. It's sort of like a trade off, and I haven't really found like the right balance for it. I'm excited to start figuring that out because I really wanted just that one card, and like I really like collecting, so it's gonna be something that I'm gonna keep on doing. But I feel a much less sense of like urgency because I pulled the card that like the number one card that I really wanted, where you like you see it and you're like, ah, fuck, that's sick,
Right.
and I think I need to find like balance in it because it's kind of the thing I do when I don't want to think. Like watching people open packs or opening packs is like somewhat cathartic, I found out, and I really do enjoy that. But it just takes a lot of time, and I think like I'm very stubborn in a sense where it's like, oh, I think I can hack this, because I that's sort of what I do when that's how my sprints work. Is like I look at something and I'm like, yeah, I could do that. Like
Mm-hmm.
video editing, like combo video. I was like, yeah, I could do that. And you saw the NYC Animal Crossing combo video,
Right.
like
You pulled some all
so,
nighters for that, right?
I pulled like three all nighters for those.
It's insane.
Yeah, I know, and so I think I'm like, oh, cool, I can crack this, and once I crack it, it'll be fine. Except you really can't because there are other people no lifing it harder than I am on it,
Right.
and have bots to help them, which is fucking rigged, but we'll take it. So I think it's really just trying to find balance. Right now, I'm starting to do it because I'm starting to make more rules for myself. I set a budget for myself, so I'm like, okay, like I know how much I'm looking for. I kind of feel like because I'm more informed and knowledgeable of the scene and community, I can kind of know what's a good price versus a bad price, and like I think like the hard thing is like not being tempted to like just buy from the scalpers that are like upcharging like like 150 to 200% for like a $20-$30 tin of
Sure.
like 5 packs. And I think that's really the big thing. It's still super tempting, but like I kind of got past the first wave now, and I'm trying to find balance. I think more than what cards threw me off this past week, and the reason I haven't been playing Melee is because um one, I just got drunk on Monday, and that wasn't like a really great start because it was just like I
I
felt
get it.
tired throughout the whole week.
Right.
Um, but I had some damn good scotch, honestly, to celebrate. Um, and then aside from that, work's just been busy. And I mean, that's the other thing, right? We're talking about hobbies, but like work's still super demanding on my end.
Mm-hmm.
Super fun. I mean, it's something that I want to, it's a career for me, And
Right.
so that is where my future sort of lies. So it's really figuring out how do I work around it. I think it's easier with Melee because like I could just like hop in and like just play by myself or find someone to play for 30 minutes, and that's cool. I think with Pokemon it's like a little weird because you have to be like kind of on edge a little bit at every point, whether like your phone buzzes and there's an alert that like something dropped or something, and so I'm just trying to set boundaries so that like I know how much effort and energy to like give to that so it's sustainable. So
Yeah.
I'm really just like kind of pulling back because like when I ask myself like what makes me the most happy, like it's just still easily like my work in Melee.
Mm-hmm.
you know, and but I also think that Pokemon has moved past a phase. And I really enjoy being a collector, and it's really nostalgic being like a big Pokemon fan as well.
Yeah, I mean, oh man, this is just so relatable to me because I'm a notorious hobby hopper where
Hmm.
I I've come to, that's just who I am, right? Like I'm always trying to figure, because I think of, like, my philosophy is that we all have some level of talent and stuff, and finding those things and like having that is one of the most enjoyable things that a person can experience, is like discovering and fostering a talent.
Yeah.
And the only way to do that is to just try a bunch of shit all the time and, figure out if you like it. And usually the first couple, whatever, sometimes it's minutes or sometimes it's months, are the most rewarding. Um, as an adult, the big challenge is like converting that into a long-term source of enjoyment, or is this just a thing that I pick up and never do it again? And that has like a bit of bitterness to it, of like, man, I wish I could get back into that. And so you don't want to like collect too many hobbies, because then you're just stuck with a bunch of like, oh, I could have been so good at that, or oh, that would have been cool. And I mean, personally, I think a hot start is great. I think coming in and like really having a ton of temptation and like, this is all I want to do and this is like a big passion and all that, I think that's a strong sign, um, that it's like worth doing. And I think once it kind of inevitably crashes into like, wait, what am I doing with my life? Like,
Yeah.
but this isn't my life now. Like, I'm not a Pokemon collector. And you realize like the people who have been doing it for a while will outpace you. Same thing with Melee, same thing with music, same thing with literally anything like that. It's like, you reach a point where your fervor has to give in to reality, and then
Hmm.
then, as you said, like, you get over the first wave, and then it's like the second wave, which is a lot more chill and a lot, honestly, I think a lot more fun, because
Yeah.
then you get to see yourself doing it for an extended period of time. Maybe not the rest of your life, because that's still a ridiculous thing to say about anything, but like, yo, Pokemon cards are fucking cool. Like, they have great art. It's kind of that little like, I mean, it is gambling. Like, gambling's
It
fun.
is. It's gambling. Yeah, it's the only thing. I'm not a gambler, but I do like this.
But it's the same thing like with stocks, right? Like, I got back into
Yeah.
the stock market so heavily with the GameStop thing, and then that came down and I felt like shit because I didn't get out like enough to actually make money. Like, I broke even
Hmm.
ultimately.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, I didn't lose anything, but I definitely, bought in again and saw it like everything canceled out essentially. And so I felt like shit and I felt like an idiot. And then, I got back into it, but in a lot less of a frantic, like, all or nothing way. And then the Dogecoin thing started, and I made a little bit of money on that actually, but I
Nice, nice. We like profits.
yeah, and like a little bit, but then I also like tried to play it, and then I got fervorous into crypto,
Yeah.
but then, that gave way to like, okay, now I'm gonna do dollar cost averaging for like $150 a month on actual coins. And
Hmm.
so I think a transition to like, from that first like burst of energy into, hey, maybe I could do this a couple days a week, or like, a couple times a month, or whatever, and actually enjoy it. It's like, that's kind of what this stage of our life is for. I think it's such the right thing to be looking for, especially now when everything's fucked up, we can't see our friends. it's
Yeah.
it's
I
like,
get the stock thing too because I got super into stocks.
mhm.
Honestly, my stock had to take a little break when I did Pokemon. Granted, I got into stocks over the summer, so you know it was good for me.
Yeah, you
Um,
rode a nice wave for sure.
I rode a very very nice wave. Very truthfully, so my portfolio is doing really well, and it's something that I'm gonna do. I learned a lot about investing, and
Right.
but there was a time where honestly, I was like as into it, reading articles, learning about the stock market, learning about the bars and the chart patterns. I wasn't day trading Dogecoin like you were, but I was doing a lot of I put a lot of money in stocks as well,
Hmm.
and learned a lot from it. And I think and some losses. Like surprisingly, Zoom was like probably one of my worst performing stocks, which you would think was you'd time it better, but I did it, and
Yeah,
so I think that's what happens. And I think it's so interesting too because it's such a different hobby from melee and like other like creative endeavors because it involves like a monetary value with it, and
hmm,
also like is sort of this like how like there's a FOMO to it. I think the what I loved you said was like kind of finding your own pace, because
yeah,
I kind of view it as like from my days of cross running back in high school, like you you can't sort of like you when I used to run 5Ks, like you can't really chase other people because you'll kind of just like burn out at the start. Like you
sure,
can do it at the end because there's a distinct end, except these hobbies don't have a distinct end.
right,
And really it's about just keeping your head down, looking at your feet, making sure you don't trip, running up a hill, running down a hill, but like you can't chase people. And I think even when you see incredible people like, let's bring up Cody, IBDW, right, as a player, Aklo, all of that stuff, like they did melee in their own pace still. Like they weren't chasing people. They were just like their pace was just faster than other
sure,
people. And I think that's okay. There are people that have a much slower pace that still get there, like Scythe, Rishi, and Ginger.
yeah,
And they took like what a decade to get top 100, right? So like it just takes time, but like I think people trying to like exert outside of their pace is by chasing someone else is where you can trip up rather than just thinking how do I find my pace and then from there make my times better.
yeah. I love that, man. Well, I think we are 5 minutes over when our guest is going to come in, but I'll keep it open to any closing words if there's anything you wanted to bring up on this topic before we switch.
That's about it. I'm gonna, streaming melee is really tough. I just really want that to be like a quiet space for me to like focus and meditate, honestly.
Hmm.
Um, unless like I'm talking with someone over Discord, like with you and stuff like that, right? But I think I'm gonna try to start streaming Pokemon card openings,
That's
just something
fun.
chill,
Yeah,
and so I'm probably check that out for later this week. I have a lot of cards coming in actually, this week. So
do it, man.
so I'm probably gonna do a card stream, probably Friday or Saturday night, something like that. So we'll figure out when. I'll make a post and do something about it. And outside of that, check out my bet match with Doodle Dudester.
Yeah,
And if he wins, he gets a discounted, notched up controller from me. And if I win, I get a free art commission. So that's gonna be fun. I have a 2 stock handicap, which means that I'm down 2 stocks at each of the best of 3. But that's happening Saturday.
yeah.
So check that out.
Shout outs to our Discord popping off like always. Such a
Shout outs.
fun
Yeah, let
group of
me
homies.
get the time. Yeah, it's 11:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So that's 2:30 for the East Coast people.
Oh yeah. Word. Well, speaking of East Coast, we got one coming in, and
Woo!
we're gonna take a quick break, and we'll be right back. So earlier this week, Smash had a huge announcement. Both Ultimate and Melee will be participating in the Smash World Tour. To help us dissect the implications and the waves that are being brought throughout the community, we have brought on a fellow podcaster, a Discord homie. You can watch and listen to his content on the bottom of the Smash Mountain podcast. Thank you for joining us, Cypher. How you doing, man?
I'm doing wonderful, JD Wasabi. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah. So one reason I wanted to have you on was you are an active member of our Discord, and you brought up a lot of really interesting questions to us that I felt we could try to answer, but I'd rather talk it through with you. You are very much into this space, and I'm not going to call you an expert. I don't think anyone's an expert that's not directly influenced with, that's not making the decisions of Smash World Tour. But we talked a little bit before recording, and we had some really, juicy topics we wanted to touch on. So first, take me through kind of where you're thinking, an overview of the Smash World Tour from your perspective, just where you at with it.
Can I add one thing also before you answer that, Cypher?
Yes.
I'd love to hear your account, your retelling of your podcast willing the Smash World Tour into existence.
Of course.
Because it was like you just finished recording, right? About how you wish it happened, and then suddenly the news hit Twitter.
Right, yeah.
And that was just the wildest feeling that I think I've experienced in recording my podcast thus far. I had on another Wannabes podcast Discord member, homie, Doodle Dudester, on, and we were talking about his origin story and talking about reactions to different things in the past few years, one of which was the announcement of the Smash World Tour 2020, which before the idea of rollback, before the idea of any sort of online competition, we had so many wonderful hype events. And one of the pipe dreams of the Melee community in particular was, will we ever get a circuit back? We had that so long ago in the MLG days when I hardly knew about Melee at that point. So that's one of those pipe dreams. And yes, when we were talking about how sad we were about the fact that it had to be canceled due to COVID, we get done recording, and the rest of the podcast was great. Doodle was a great guest. And then we have this announcement come out of Smash World Tour 2021. I was so ecstatic. I was so excited just watching the 37 or something second trailer on Twitter from BGBC going, this is like the biggest thing of the year so far, 2021 Melee. This is awesome. And then I think once I started reading into it a little bit more on the SmashWorldTour.com website about the specific details, I think I started to cool down a little bit because it wasn't what I anticipated. The biggest thing that I was not expecting to see is that for the Melee side of the Smash World Tour, they're having it for Ultimate as well, is that the Melee side of things, they are going to try to have them held in person, IRL. It's the big question, the big anticipation of, oh, so now there's somebody, an authoritative tournament organizing group in our Melee community who are finally saying, this is when we want to get back to LAN. This is when we want to stop with the online tournament side of things. Not that it's stopping permanently, just that we're going to try to stamp dates down onto the calendar and return to it hopefully at that time. So that's what I was thinking. Oh, okay, so that leaves a lot of questions in the air that we don't know right now because we're not in the end of the year yet, in the end of summer, fall time of the year.
Yeah, that's definitely, I think, the biggest thing I wanted to talk about as well. And honestly, I didn't even know until you and some other people brought it up, because I thought it would be an insane thing to try to do. And I guess it makes sense that they don't want to mess with making Slippy a part of their structure. How sad is it that they would rather risk on COVID than they would from Nintendo. Nintendo's a bigger threat to this in their eyes than COVID is. And yeah, it's fucked up. It's like, there can't be, and I think honestly, part of me is actually convinced that there's some politicking going on here where they might think that, Nintendo will step in and grant them permission to do, like, you know,
I don't think that's gonna happen.
I don't know,
think they're
man.
just trying to play around the rules.
I guess, but it's just it seems so insane based
Nintendo
off of.
doesn't care about COVID. Sorry to cut you off.
No, I hear
I
it.
mean, it just pisses me off, but like, fuck Nintendo. We're not a Nintendo podcast. Fuck that.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, Nintendo doesn't care about COVID. It didn't care about COVID then. It's not gonna care about COVID now. I think I want to be excited about it, but I guess in my head, I think it's super hype. And what I see happening is that they're really VGBC is trying to be they're making a hard read. They're trying to be first movers into the post-pandemic world. And from a, I think, like, will it benefit the community? Yes. Like, it has something that we're all looking for. I think, would we want it to be simpler because Nintendo is a shit company? Yes, but that's just not going to happen. I think what I going back to the in IRL events is that I think what I'm worried about is that you'll have panelists from these events being the finals where they'll play it, and I'm worried that the competition won't be there. I think we'll have some players that are willing to be there, but how many of them are gonna risk going out there, and if they can afford to, right? Sure. Some of them are just students, on their family's insurance, or some of them have family members that are immunocompromised. So I think, for the pro players of the world, maybe it's more possible, but for the average top 20 player, who's hanging out with their family during this quarantine time, that has like an immunocompromised parent or two or sibling, then I think that's going to be a really tough decision. We saw those decisions being made even towards the tail end of Hax's nightclub, right? And that's what ultimately caused Hax's nightclub to end back in March. And so I am really worried about that. That being said, I think what I've seen events being done before, but it's normally in a way more closed space. So, like, for example, Street Fighter League was done during COVID, right? And they filmed each week, like, after each day, but it was about, like, 20 to 30 players in one space, but they were all contained. And I think the thing about it having one IRL event and involving travel in it, that's where I kind of get worried on the logistics of it.
Yeah. There's so many. I think when you put something together like this with so many things up in the air, it's like okay, the first IRL event is in June, and
yes,
it says Oceania, but that's Australia, right?
Australia, it's gonna be
So that's gonna happen. Australia's got their shit together. My sister lives there, and even the
they're
worst
a better
parts,
country than us. Yeah, well, we can just admit it. We can just admit it. Nintendo shit, US is shit.
Australia.
I'm tight. I'm sorry.
Okay, all right. Well, let's take this one at a time, right? So clearly, they're doing way better, and East Asia is very similar. So BGW is in Japan, and I know that they're not perfect, but they're doing much better than us too. So there is a big assumption once this gets, and Europe it has its struggles as well. I mean, I'm not gonna pretend to be an expert on this, but I know the UK is mirroring the United States in a lot of ways in terms of handling the virus. So August, so we're really looking to August as the first kind of, can this actually happen? Like, is this actually going to go through? And I mean, August 7th and 8th, we're probably a few weeks behind, like I just feel like right now there aren't necessarily questions being asked on the safety and what metrics are we using to say, like, this is how many people are going to be allowed in the venue. Are we just going off of the government's rules? How are people going to actually come over to where's the finals going to be? Are they like they say TBA? Does that just mean what country is not going to have a travel ban and they're going to fly them all to that country? Is that going to be affordable? Is that going to be safe? Like, there are so many questions that are popping up that I don't see on their website. I don't see safety as like they say, unfortunately, due to COVID-19, but like that didn't stop in 2020. It's still happening. So I know that the team members that they have on for instance, like the seating is great. They're a great team, but that's not the executive of all this stuff. So there's no answers to this. Like, I'm not even anticipating either of you guys to have a clue, because I have no idea like what's going to go on. But like, we need to be asking these questions of how is this going to actually be carried out, because our community has no control over how the virus is going to be spreading at that time. Like, shit, man, it just feels too ambitious. It's great to see, but if we're like, this should just be an online thing. Ultimate Online sucks ass. Why are we doing Ultimate Online? Like, it's so backwards, Let all the Ultimate kids get sick. Like, let us play online.
Whoa.
I know.
You're the one who's getting
Look. COVID doesn't affect children. All right, let the Ultimate players play in real IRL.
It's a tilting topic. I mean, let's admit that first. This is a very hard topic to talk about because of how frustrating the pandemic has been, and it's affected a lot of people we know, loved ones maybe, and so it is tough to talk about it and imagine someone planning an IRL event, even if it's for the sake of Melee.
And for the sake of fairness, just to put a context to this, we're recording the day after this gets announced, right? And the first thing that VGBC is probably concerned about is bringing back awareness to the Smash World Tour coming back, generating the hype. I hope to see in the near future, and I think that this is a fair expectation, a video of some kind, content of some kind from, I mean, Gimmer comes to mind, but there are other people involved with the VGBC that are in charge of making decisions who need to talk about the safety aspect of this. One of my crazy conspiracy theories that just kind of was baking in my head just now is that we're all saying that the Melee events are IRL, but we're going to actually have them be Slippy, wink, wink. You know what I'm saying? Because they have done nothing to address the safety aspect of it through the website. To your point, JD, there's like and unfortunately last year COVID-19 had to cancel the 2020 World Tour, but we're excited to tentatively bring it back this year and acting like it's going to definitely happen. At the same time, it is, to me, I think that one of the things that I think of is that the NFL or the NBA are multi-billion-dollar corporations and leagues that can throw an almost seemingly infinite amount of money into any logistical issue. But this is the Smash community.
We have more money than that. We're like double the NBA essentially.
Yeah, I mean,
no,
if we're thinking about like cost, even, right? COVID test roughly cost $125, right? You get 32 players in one space, not even including staff. Times that by 32, that's $4,000 just to make sure safety precautions are good.
For one of
them. To run one test for everyone.
To run one test for just the players, just the top 32.
Right,
players.
And then are they going to have insurance? Or like, are they going to be covering medical costs of people if they get sick through this? Like, it's just, yes. I first off, Cypher, what you said about like the wink, wink, this is actually going to be online. Hopefully, we're not giving up the game here, because if that's what they're doing, take back everything I said. They are geniuses. I love them so much. If
we're gonna clip that. We're clipping just that if that happens.
Yeah, if they like say, "Oh, this is the event," because then actually that's genius, because they put Nintendo in a bind where Nintendo would have to come in and like brute force shut down an event and say
A world tour of the Melee's first tour.
and say you have to hold this in person. You have to. And like we thought the free Melee like big house drama was bad. Imagine Nintendo stepping in to tell gamers that the only way for them to compete is to risk their lives. Like that is the worst PR I could possibly imagine. Like I don't know.
Look, it's gonna drop with their with their latest Smash Bros and Pokemon DLC though. That's what we're forgetting.
Yeah.
But I think to move the conversation forward, because it is a really, as I said, a tough topic to talk about and frustrating because of the lack of information that was given.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hoping for the wink situation, but you know, on the positive, right? I think it makes it seem like there's something to aim towards for a lot of players.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what's really going to be exciting. And it's really ballsy and such a hard read for VG Bootcamp to either bet on a wink situation, peer pressuring situation, or just vaccines work and we're okay. Though I'm a little worried about that with, obviously, let's not forget the other variants of COVID now. But, you know, they're really trying to be first movers into this. And I think that's exciting. You know, that is really, really exciting. And it gives something to like look forward to in 2021 outside of like, oh, this online tournament here, or oh, this online tournament there, and oh, we're region locked here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really big. And I think it had to be VGBC also. I think that's also the big thing. Is it just that is the only body that Smash has with that much pull also.
And backing by Twitch. I mean, that's that
let's
has
not
to be
forget
where the prize money is coming
let's
from.
Let's not forget Jeff Bezos loves Melee.
Oh yeah, and we love Jeff Bezos. Oh boy, no, that's a one-sided relationship for sure.
I have thoughts about that. So
no, fuck.
I'll
Jeff
get
Bezos.
more tilted.
Yeah, that guy's a piece of shit. But basically, I think you guys are really on point with kind of what needs to be brought up. Like, I'm not even concerned about who's gonna win. Like, oh, what events are gonna be hype. Like, this is all about the legitimacy of, is this gonna happen? Because ultimately, like, I think our scene is pretty conservative when it comes to the coronavirus.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we do err on the side of caution, and that if this happens, it's not going to be a reckless thing. Like these IRL events, I trust that if they do come out, there's going to be a good amount of due diligence to make sure it's safe.
Yeah,
it's just a matter of can it be pulled off.
We have models like that, like for Capcom Cup, you know, or I mean Street Fighter League, but we're seeing it for Capcom. I mean, I'm literally have a stream open on my other screen where they're doing net play, but the analysts are all IRL. Like the commentators and analysts are all IRL. So, you know, maybe we'll get something like that. I don't know, but there are models for it, you know, which is also the good thing to talk about. But I wanted to throw this over to you, Cypher, of both your thoughts on it and wondering if we should also get into some of your lovely questions, because I think JD and I will also start raging when we consider the safety of our fellow smashers.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I have to pull that back up because honestly I'm not remembering the questions right off the top of my head. I wasn't ready for. Anyway,
no worries. If you also have one, just like do it off the dome and have any additional thoughts to add in, please do. Also,
okay, this is gonna go backwards a little bit. The thought that I had before we get into the questions, y'all remember when we got the Nintendo's response to the C&D? Nintendo really appreciates the passion of the Smash community, and then in their most recent Nintendo Direct, they said something to the effect of, we see everyone struggling out here with the pandemic. We express our concern. the same sort of vibe. They look at us the same way that they look at COVID. It's sort of a, ugh, that's an inconvenient thing that's costing us money. It's so frustrating. But yes, to move on to hopefully slightly more positive things, to my questions that I had written out earlier today. How many times do you think this is actually going to try to go through before the Smash World Tour actually happens for sure? Because on the one hand, we're all hopeful and optimistic that this will go through and it will succeed, at least to the point where we're ready to go into it for 2022. But then there's another flip side of the coin where it all sort of falls apart. And I myself am not convinced that it will actually happen. So is this going to turn into a third time's the charm, or will it not?
Making us predict things, huh?
Well, you know, that's what the Wannabes are all about occasionally.
That's what we're all about sometimes.
I'm a 4 on this. I'm putting the number 4 for my answer.
That's how many tries? This is try number 2. You think there's 2 more? This fails and the next one fails?
Yes.
Holy shit. Okay, let's see.
That generally is the difference between 2 and 4, JD.
Well, I'm seriously. I don't know if I missed one. Like you're that's zero faith. That's like that's like the max.
We'll get there. But yeah, I do think 4.
Okay. Well, then I'll go 2.5. Right. Where I think
over under 2.5.
No.
You're saying 3. What you're saying is 3.
No. I think this one happens online. I consider that a pivot.
Okay.
So
okay.
So I think some of these, like I think June's gonna come around, and Australia is gonna come in, and it's gonna be like, yeah, Australia, like we're all fine, whatever, and like, oh, we're the Western world, right? And you know, whatever, they have their event, no one gets sick, it runs without a hitch. Then Japan, it's July. And as Japan's going on, we're looking at these numbers and looking at our watches like, you know, are we good?
Mm-hmm.
And then the decision comes last minute to make the Europe online. I think that's got to be online. So August comes and Slippy down the line. And that might be their number one contingency plan, because it might just give Nintendo less time to come up with a cease and desist, or less time to come up with a case, you know. Like, I think this is them saying, hey, we want to do things proper, and then it comes up and they're like, we already started, man. Like, we already, because June 25th, right? That's 2 weeks before the Japan one. There's a plausible deniability of youth, of them thinking like we could get through this, we could do this properly.
Mm-hmm.
And then it comes to it and they're like, shit, we already started the tour. It's not fair to the, you know, like we already started, you know, we had an IRL event, we have to keep this going, let's just do it on Slippy Online. And then, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So 2.5. I think this one goes through, but it gets a pivot halfway through.
And then my own deep suspicion is we get to the first few the first few regional events to get you to the finals that happen at the end of the year, and they go through fine. But the first one where online starts to be discussed, Nintendo says, you can continue the Ultimate side of things for this year's Smash World Tour, but you got to cancel Melees. And that would break all of our hearts and cause more waves of #free Melees. But I do worry that something like that may end up being the case, because would VGBC say, all right, well, I guess we'll continue with Ultimate and enrage the Melee side of things by doing that? Or what would happen? That's the thing. There are a lot of ways to address this. There are a lot of butterfly, like, trails and decisions and forks in the road that we just won't know till we get there. But I do hope that it goes through online, and that honestly, I think that a lot of people can get behind that. With all the players that accept Slippy as more legitimate, I think as long as Nintendo can actually let us do that, either by being forced to or otherwise, that would be awesome.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right, you gotta let's say a final question because we gotta wrap this up soon.
Okay. So then let's make this a fun question. Let's the wonky question that I was thinking of then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's say that we have the Smash World Tour go through up to the finals, either because we went online at some point and that's going on without a hitch. So let's just say that we're online for the Melee side of things. We're trying to make these finals hype. If you can invite on a guest commentator for a few of the top 8 sets, or maybe just one, and they don't have to be even closely related to video games. It could just be a literal anyone that you could think off the top of your hat to sort of be like,
yes,
promote our event and commentate this at least for a 30 minutes. Give us a block. Who would you invite?
You were never gonna guess my answer in a million years.
I got mine. Yeah, go for your first, JD.
Okay.
I love this question though. Dude, I
hear me
normally
out.
would shout out your question. I'm so used to shouting out your questions.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking this question.
Yeah. Who asked this? Shout outs to Cypher. Okay. I would invite Ryan Seacrest.
Oh man.
Oh,
Here's why. So, as you may know, I've been living with my grandmother since November, right? For a few months now.
Yep.
And every morning I go up, I check on her, make sure she got her breakfast in. She wakes up before me, so just making sure she got her coffee, all that. And once 9 rolls around, Ryan and Kelly, every morning, Channel 7, like clockwork. And I've been able to catch some of Ryan Seacrest entertaining guests and things he does not understand. And by God, this is the most charming, agreeable man to ever exist on the planet. I have been swept away by Ryan Seacrest's ability to just accept things he doesn't know. And I think get him on a mic and be like, look, this is your job now. Like half an hour, you have to commentate this game you've never seen before. I think it would be the most clipped, amazing content, dense block that would ever happen. That's my take.
interesting.
Who do you got?
For me, all right. So for me, I think there were so many people that I initially thought of, right? But I think one of the I think you can have a celebrity, right? You can have a celebrity and have it be really amazing and get the word out and get the hype out, right? But as a fan of the game, who would be do the most honor for Melee is where my head's at. Right?
I know who you're gonna say now.
And I don't think you do, actually.
All right, I guess I don't.
And I think if he actually liked Melee,
oh, okay.
I think one person that would do it justice that I would love to see, because he would change what just the energy that he's brought from everything I've seen him commentate, has to be Tasty Steve.
I don't know who that is.
He is one of the hypest Tekken, Street Fighter, DBZ commentators out there. And dude, he is hilarious. He's lifting up chairs. He's standing up. He's grabbing the commentators by arm. There's so many clips of the commentator being Steve, my arm. You know, I think it's just the passion that he brings, and he would have the fighting game knowledge to have nuance and be able to talk about the psychology of it and still talk about Melee. And it was hard because I actually was going to go the celebrity route as well. My bet would have been on Paul Rudd or Jason Sudeikis or Trevor Noah. Those were my top 3 celebs. But I think I was thinking of who could really just show how sick Melee is. Not based on their follower count and their reach. Obviously a reach would be amazing. But who would do it the most justice? That being said, I do want to see the Rock with Scar.
Oh man, that would be so good. I think The Rock would actually be a fantastic commentator too. He might be better than Seacrest now that you mention it. Now, I thought you were gonna say Sajam.
Oh yeah.
That's who I thought
that's
you were
fair.
going
That's
with.
fair. I chose Sajam's partner in crime.
Oh, I didn't know they partnered up.
No, they partner up. They're a Bobby Scar, they're a Scar and Toph duo.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Then
I think Sajam would
I'm
be
into
cool, but I think we have so many good analyst commentators in the scene. And
Yeah,
I don't think we have like a commentator that's just like pure absolute raw energy.
Okay. All right, man. I like it. I think that that inspires me for my next block too, to just be absolute ape shit.
Yeah. You have to watch you have to watch Tasty Steve. You would like his commentary.
All right.
Honestly.
All right.
Like he would turn to the crowd and be like, "Everybody make some noise," and
All right,
it's really great. Yeah.
Okay.
And you have to have the right voice for that as well. It can't just be anyone. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
For me, if I could bring another commentator from a different sport, Kevin Harlan commentates different types of events, but I've seen him commentate football. So that I think that his voice is so rich and buttery, and he also like can get hype sometimes. I think is the perfect blend of like analyzing and commentating. But in terms of just like a random celebrity person, that was my suggestion. The Rock, getting somebody like that, because
so
Rock
good.
is like a humongous following, and would appreciate the competition side of it, even if he has no idea what's happening. And then like a random person that I thought of, Amanda Gorman could be inspired by Melee and make the sickest poem for the next presidential inauguration.
That is sick. That is left field that I do love.
I like it too, but man, that is such a stretch.
No, that is so cool though. I love that.
There are two things that inspire me, and that is social justice and a sick grand final set of Fox and Falco. Just putting it out there. Like, nah, man. I don't know.
I'm thinking though, can you imagine Paul Rudd being like, Paul, like Scar being like, Paul, who would have thought we would get this far? Not me. Not me. But that's more for the memes.
Did you see that, Dwayne? Yeah, I think there's a world where.
Did you see that, Dwayne? Yes, Bobby. I just saw that. Oh man.
Oh man, that's fun to think about, man. I don't know.
My all-time person, and I guess this is tribute because unfortunately, R.I.P. I would have gone Kobe in a heartbeat. I would have gone Kobe.
Yeah, R.I.P. Man. That's
he has such an appreciation for mentality and drive and like the competitor spirit. I think it would have been amazing.
I would have loved to hear Kobe give like an interview on the winner. I think that like Kobe interviewing Armada or something. That like just a long form, because him like shouting out the game is one thing. I think he would be more caught up in like what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
To get really picky, but like a legit conversation of him and like Melee champions would be the most prime like juicy content that would ever exist. I don't know. I'm getting ahead of myself. We got to wrap this up.
This might be a separate section. We'll talk, JD. We'll talk.
All right. Well, fantasy commentator duos. We'll put that question out there.
Put Kobe in a thumbnail. I feel bad.
No, that's clickbaity as fuck.
That's too bad. Yeah.
But anyway, I want to wrap this up by giving a huge shout out to Cypher for coming on. Please just let everyone know where they could find your content, your podcast. What's going on with you, man?
You can find Bottom of the Smash Mountain on just about any podcasting platform. But if you are not going to do that right away, you can come to Twitter at BSM Pod on Twitter to find the Bottom of the Smash Mountain's Twitter account, or my own personal account at Cypher003. And I'll just go ahead and say that it's been a pleasure to be on. You two were one of the two biggest inspirations for me to start my own podcast. So I'm very appreciative of how real you made it to me to say, actually, this is something that I can do. So thank you for inviting me on. This is like a dream come true kind of thing.
Oh man, you've been crushing it. It was a no-brainer. No-brainer to have you on. We will be collaborating more in the future.
Yes, would love to. Yeah, we need to talk about. We need to talk also, Cypher, about a podcast.
When we're done recording.
Yeah,
That's that professional thing.
Yeah, you'll link.
Yeah. But see, that's the thing, right? I'm bringing it up in the recording.
Okay, all right.
People are like, oh.
Well, we gotta end it. All right, thank you guys for listening, and we'll catch you next time.